Oh, how you doing?
Hey, good man. What's going on?
I'm doing well, man. Let me put my video on so you can see me.
Yeah, you got it.
All right. I don't want you to think, yeah, you're gonna be staring at a blank screen.
No, you're fine. I come from jazz radio, so we only do audio usually, so it's all good.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Sounds good.
Well, hey, nice to meet you. Thanks for taking a minute out.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm sorry about the misunderstanding of how that went out.
Oh, it's all
Let me
good.
turn. Let me
Yeah,
just turn my video so audio.
sure.
Okay, cool. So yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So where are you coming out of?
Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn. That's where my dad was born. He's born in
Okay.
Brooklyn, raised in Long Island. Came to Kansas City in the Air Force, and that's why I'm here. So we're right here in the
Okay.
middle of the country. So, well,
Hmm.
hey, it's great to meet you. Thanks for taking a minute out. And before we get into your life as a host and everything that goes into who you are, I want to know, how did you survive COVID? How did you get through that 3 year period? And how has it changed the way that you live your life now that the world's opening up and we're kind of entering a post-pandemic era?
Yeah. So what I would say is during that time, I actually was thriving. So and during that time, I had finished college and I was doing food delivery service. So food delivery service was booming. So money did not stop during that time because everybody obviously was located in the house and the streets were clear. It was like the first time in a long time I could drive through New York City and through Brooklyn and get from one place to the next within 10 minutes. It was actually an amazing experience. And yeah, I during that time I saved a good bit of money. So I didn't really have any sacrifices during that time. I actually thrived pretty well. And then you said the big difference from that moment to now how I live my life. I've been in terms of my faith walk and in terms of who I am, I've always put Christ first. My commitment to studying scripture, understanding God from a personal perspective, sharing it with others is always a priority for me. And I would say during that time, nothing really has changed in terms of my approach to life. I just took the opportunity that was, accessible to me and I maximized it to the greatest of my ability. And my approach today and then was pretty much the same. The only difference is I think I'm probably a little bit more cautious now where I'm going in and out anything that I touch. Like if I go and I pump my gas, I make sure I got hand sanitizer on the door because I think germs has you want to be more cautious with potential germs everywhere you go. I think washing your hands, I think I've been a little bit more intentional with that as well and just being cautious about how I communicate with people, whether you're real closer to them, the amount of space you're giving them, those sorts of things. And I think good hygiene and taking care of yourself in those ways are extremely helpful. And I've always been an athlete, so working out, I stayed on top of that. Eating right, I'm staying on top of that because you never know what kind of virus you might attract or you might get, and you have to have a strong immune system to fight it off. So I would say the health thing, probably I stepped it up a little bit more and just being cautious of going in and out of apartment complexes and businesses, washing your hands, making sure you're doing that. And then I would say this too, is actually one of the things from my year for the podcast is being intentional about the respect and communication that you have with people. Because you never know, I would say for us as believers, Christians, whoever we encounter, the behavior that we exhibit, we have to be Christ-like because a person may never know what Christ is, but if he comes in contact with us, the way we carry ourselves with class and decorum dictates how they view our God because we're ambassadors and representatives of him. So I would say every time I interact with a stranger, I try to make sure, regardless of how negative they might be or how terrible the situation could possibly turn out, always treat them with respect so that they know that us as believers and myself as an ambassador, that's what I pride myself in doing, being that Christ-like figure in that person's eyes in that moment, even if it's for a little while. So those are some things I would say just off the top of my head that I've probably tried to embrace or tried to change or enhance as I live my life.
So let's get to the essence of what you do for a living. Let's put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day. One of the kids looks
Mm.
up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
So what I would say to them is I would say, what I do for a living is I share the gospel. message with Christ. And I would tell them that one of the most important things that comes with doing that is living a life that exhibits what I say and what I, and that's a day-to-day process regardless of what you do for money. Ultimately, the way that you express yourself to people and communicate things to people dictate exactly the character that people can then model after, and ultimately it can open the door for many other opportunities. Right? The quality of your thinking can determine the quality of your life is one aspect, but also the way that you go about your business is also a very important aspect. So I would say these are things that are part of what it is that you want young children to understand, that your character, when it comes to embracing or embarking upon any journey in life, you want to make sure that your character is built up enough to sustain you over that period of time on any job that you get into, because you don't have to be an expert in a lot of things to get a great opportunity. You'll always, as long as you're always teachable, then that company or business will take a chance on you because they see that the image that you carry can be an enhancement over the brand that they might want to entrust you with. So I would say, at least for me, doing that can open up many doors for any other opportunities separate from what I might want to do in the near future, moving from company to company or opportunity to opportunity.
So what did you want to be when you were in the third grade?
I want to be an NFL player. I wanted to play in the NFL.
Okay, well then let's go back into your history. Where were you born and raised, and what were some of these seeds that were planted into you to become who you are today?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and some of the seeds that were implanted in me, and I guess when I started, some of the issues that I was dealing with was I had some deficiencies when it came to reading. Didn't take it that seriously, and I remember my parents coming up to parent teacher conference, and I realized that I had embarrassed them because the way that I was going about my life at that point until then was not very serious. And you never want to embarrass your parents and put them on a spot because you have these teachers talking about the potential you could possibly be, but you're not living it out. So it was from that point on, they I wouldn't call them extremely strict, but it was more of a talking to. And through that talking to, it opened up the door for me to realize that, hey, if I want to have any sort of positive future, that mindset has to change. My priorities have to change. And then I think ultimately what the seed that was planted in there is don't be afraid to ask for help. Like it helped tremendously once I got to college because there were plenty of different programs on the college campus that you had access to that can help perpetuate you to be successful in whatever it is that you want to do. So I would say that was a seed that was planted in. If you need help, ask. Don't be so prideful to the degree that you continue to do things ineffectively and then it affects what it is that you want to do long term. So being able to ask and then being able to rely on others other than yourself can open up the door for you to have success. And I think for any business or for anyone out there that is successful, you can look around them and see they have an excellent team surrounding them. They're all not trying to juggle everything at the same time. But that was a seed that was planted in. And then that actually helped me with my podcast too. Like the design for my podcast didn't come from me. It was through a relationship. My brother, my second youngest brother, he's actually the tech whiz. He's responsible for posting the episode up and editing it. And he's taught me some of that along the way. And he's also someone that would hear what my ideas and thoughts are, and then I would run them by him, and he would say, "These are a bit more sensitive. You might want to watch this." These sort of things help me to be my best overall self that I can be when I'm dealing with things, especially from podcasts.
So who's been a hero in your life?
So I'll be honest with you. I would say I don't have a hero. And the reason why I would say I don't have a hero is because once I went through high school, there were certain individuals that I thought played a pivotal role in my success. But I found that a lot of the problems and issues that came along with them was that they didn't practice what they taught me. And it was interesting because I was just reading, there was a passage in the book of Matthew, chapter 23, and it goes from verse 1 through 7 when Jesus points out how the experts in the law, including the Pharisees, are the original knowledge barriers. when it comes to the message of what was interpretation by Moses in the book of Moses. And one of the things Jesus points out is don't look at them as an example. What that showed me is that their value to provide information and insight is one thing, but to actually practice out what it is that's being said is a completely different other thing. And I think we get that really mixed up when we look at our pastors, our teachers, our preachers in this, current setting, is that we look at them as if they're God, not realizing that in Hebrews 4:15 it talks about how Jesus is that perfect standard. And if he's that perfect standard, the life that needs to be modeled after has to be Jesus. That's why I believe God came in the form of a man to give us and leave us with an example. So what I realized is when I was going through, high school, there were certain individuals that played a pivotal role in me pursuing athletics. But then when it came to everything else outside of them, and don't get mistaken, like I believe no one's perfect. We all make mistakes. But there was just a lot of individuals that I felt weren't the best example setters when it came to things that I thought were very important and would make a big difference how I saw the world moving forward. So I would say I took little nuggets, right? Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, if your head is inside the lion's mouth, don't pull it out, but slowly. But what I would do is I would take elements that I thought would help in what they shared, and I would apply it. And then I would see the best version of them in what it is that I was seeking the help from. So I would say I pull from a lot of different areas, but a particular hero, unfortunately, no hero.
So, what is the fire that fuels you every day? What is it that ultimately makes you who you are and puts you through the day?
Yeah. So what fuels me every day is a desire to be Christ-like. Let God's light, love, and truth shine through me. And that's something you have to continuously practice. That's something you have to be mindful the things you say, how you go about things, the way you treat others. What are you using the acts of the flesh to fuel you or using the fruits of the spirit? And these are things that over time, scripture says, let every thought that you have be filtered through. And obviously, you won't get it perfect, but can I get close to it? I can strive to. And that has to do with being intentional. So, what fuels me is to be just like Christ. And obviously, that takes a lot of effort, time, intention, and making sure your speech is always seasoned with salt. Making sure not to be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry, because human anger is not the righteousness that God our Father desires. And that to me is a work in progress. That to me is something that I can always strive to be better at. That's to me is something that I can never arrive and said I've gotten to the mountaintop. That to me is like a marathon, not a sprint, right? And because it's a marathon, that means you can make adjustments here and there to ultimately get to a place where you feel confident, intentional about who you are, right? Scripture also talks about, you know, examining yourself, examining your life, and whether or not it's reflective of what you say you believe in. So all those things take reflection. Reflection is extremely important because through reflection, you can make adjustments to ultimately be in a place where you feel like you've made change. I think in life, when it comes to making changes, there's different ways you can measure that change. There's chaotic moments, there's productivity moments, there's reflection moments, there's time moments. The chaotic moments come from times and periods where you feel like you have nothing left, and then you reevaluate and see that there is something valuable there that can help put you in a place to make those adjustments. And then the productivity moment just has to do with the progressiveness of what it takes for a plant to grow and blossom. So you look at a tree and you say, well, how tall can a tree grow? As high as it wants to. I believe that if you're trying to compare that to myself, you can be the best version of yourself, but it's going to require time and effort. And I feel like knowing that there's no way you can reach perfection, but you can definitely make middle little adjustments here and there to get you there.
So, of all the things that you've done up to this point in your life, what are you the proudest of?
I think the proudest I'm of is actually getting a college education. Think that was the most challenging point in my life that I think that I wanted to embark upon because you face challenges where it's causes you in a short period of time to grow up, and then it transfers over into your real life and how you approach things. So there's deadlines, there's commitments, there's management of time, there's management and understanding of people, there's networking and communicating with other people that you might not agree with. It's being able to gather and work together because someone else might be better at something than you are. And as a result, they might be better suited to put you in a place of success. And there's also just being able, again, to sit down and thoroughly want to learn something. That requires you having to take the additional time to get there so that you can be successful. And I believe there are a lot of people within that context that want to see you be successful and they have the willingness to want to get you there. And I think through that environment and that, you know, amount of time it took me to get there to actually graduate, I think it's something that no one can take away from me. And the skills, talents, and abilities that I learned through the process and work ethic, by the way, to then transfer over and pour into other things in life that I can look back on and say, hey, this was a moment in life where I had to rise above. I had to be more than a conqueror. And ultimately, that's got me to a better place. Now I can then allow those habits and skills that I developed in that process to then help me in every other area that I want to tackle and want to chase after. I would say my college education is one that I'm most proud of, even to the degree that I even walked because I enjoyed the process of what it took to get there. And as a result of that piece of paper was enjoying the process over.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, your listeners, but you ultimately lead the ship. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm a person that's patient, that's kind, that's generous, that's open to criticism, that's open to dialogue. I think that's the best place that you can grow and actually ultimately become better. I think I'm a person that's reasonable. I think that's a person that's articulate. I think I'm a person that's very philosophical and logical in my reasoning behind why the things that I do. And I think I'm a person that's straightforward and bold. And, you know, if there's something that needs to be said, I would appreciate the boldness and straightforwardness to get to it rather than, you know, beating around the bush. And I would say because that is who I am, I think I've gained and have a lot of supporters and those that respect me as a result of being that. And I can only be myself, which means rather than being other, you know, characteristic, you know, issues that people might have, being my authentic self would mean this is exactly what you're going to get 99% of the time. Being that 1% can be other reasons why I may not be that.
So, Jonathan, if anybody excuse me, if anybody wants to tune into your podcast, learn more about you, anything pertaining to your world, where is the best place to go?
So there's a few ways you can reach me. There's my Instagram, the truth of TMIS, the truth of TMIS. There's also a Facebook group called I'm a Believer, where we try to encourage one another. There's a passage in Romans chapter 1, verse 12 that says, let us be mutually encouraged by one another's faith. So in order for you to grow and mature in your own faith, you don't grow in isolation, you have to grow in community. There's my email, speed, and then there's ed at the end of that. So speed, ed at the end of that, a3@gmail.com. I don't ever believe that I'm on such a high horse that I'm not reachable. You can't access me in any time that you want to. And then finally, I would say TikTok. It's the same thing as my Instagram, the truth of TMIS. And there are usually short snippets where you can reach me or find what the podcast is really about in a short video. And I'm always there to respond and react and communicate there. So those are all the places you can reach and get in contact with
Excellent, Jonathan. This has been great. Thank you for reaching out. I'm glad that we got together. Keep on doing the good work. I appreciate it, man.
me as well. Thank you.
Take care. See you later.